Have you ever wondered what turns an ordinary person into a hero? At Camp Pendleton, under the brilliant dawn, the Marines train not just their bodies, but their iron wills. Captain John Hawk Sullivan, with a scar that tells a story of battle, leads his troops with the unwavering spirit of Semper Fi. By his side is Sergeant Maria Blaze Cortez, a resilient fire, and Private Tommy Kid Nguyen, a young man full of passion but with much still to learn. They are not just teammates, they are family, ready to face any challenge that comes their way. But in the shadows of San Francisco, a threat is rising. Vincent Dragon Leung, the Triad leader, fueled by pain and hatred, is plotting to sabotage the USMC celebration. Can John and his team stop this scheme before it's too late? Who will you stand with? Join us as we embark on a journey of courage, sacrifice, and camaraderie. Share your thoughts on what makes a hero in your eyes. Early morning at Camp Pendleton, California, the air is fresh and crisp, with temperatures around 65 degrees, making it the perfect time for the grueling training sessions of the Marine Corps. Located 38 miles north of San Diego, this vast base stretches over 125,000 acres of training grounds, serving as a home for brave soldiers who are always ready to face any challenge. Amidst this expansive landscape, the troops are running, sweat pouring down, but none of them have any intention of backing down. It's a strong spirit, a Semper Fi spirit always faithful. Captain John Hawk Sullivan, a former USMC veteran with 15 years of experience, stood in command, watching every move the soldiers made. He had short brown hair and a 3-inch scar on his left cheek, a reminder of a bombing in Iraq that brought back memories of the comrades who never returned. Despite having faced many hardships, John's eyes were always filled with determination. He called out each name, encouraging them to push forward, not letting fatigue hold them back. "Pick up the pace, team!" His voice echoed in the air, blending with the heavy breaths of the soldiers giving it their all. Among the group of soldiers, Sergeant Maria Blaze Cortez, a demolition expert of Mexican descent, was also participating in the training. With her black hair pulled back neatly, she was a model of resilience. Maria was not only skilled in her craft, but also an inspiration to rookies, like Private Tommy Kid Nguyen, a 22-year-old Vietnamese American, eager yet inexperienced. Tommy looked up to Maria with admiration, trying to keep his heartbeat steady as he ran. She was always there, guiding and encouraging him, making Tommy feel like he was gradually becoming a part of this team. When they finished the 5-mile run, John led the team to the shooting range. The M16A4 rifles were fully loaded, and the sounds of gunfire filled the air, creating a symphony of power and precision. John didn't just stand back and watch. He joined in, showcasing his skills and calm demeanor. The sight of bullets flying, the dark holes forming on the target, was a testament to their relentless training. In those moments, John recalled the painful memories from Iraq, where he lost close friends. Those memories lingered like a haunting presence in his mind, but they also fueled his drive to become a better leader. After the shooting practice, the team moved on to the landing drill. Each step taken, every action performed with precision, yet amidst the seriousness, the spirit of camaraderie shone through. John continuously reminded the soldiers about the importance of supporting one another, of maintaining faith in their teammates. He understood that in the harsh realities of war, each person's survival depended not just on individual skills, but also on the bond that held the entire team together. As the sun rose high in the sky, signaling the start of a new day, John stood at a distance, watching his team. A swell of pride filled his heart as he saw each member giving their all, pushing beyond their limits. But behind that smile and confidence, John couldn't shake the pain of loss he had endured. The teammates who had fallen in Iraq were the reason he continued to dedicate himself to his country, to his team, and most importantly, to those who were still alive. At that moment, an announcement from higher up echoed through the room, calling for the team to prepare for a special mission. Everyone paused, their eyes fixed on John, the leader they trusted. John felt the heavy weight of responsibility resting on his shoulders. He took a deep breath, readying himself for what lay ahead, and deep down, he silently vowed to protect each member of his team, just as his friends had once protected him. Camp Pendleton, with its concrete buildings and sprawling training grounds, is not just a place for honing skills, but also a repository of memories, pain, and dreams of the soldiers. John, Maria, and Tommy, each with their own unique story, all share a common goal: to protect their homeland and uphold the unity of their team. Amidst the hardships and challenges, they found strength in one another, from the camaraderie that nothing could break. That is the spirit of the Marine Corps, an indomitable spirit. In the bright neon lights of Chinatown, San Francisco, the streets like Grant Avenue and Stockton Street are always bustling with the sounds of people coming and going. But behind the colorful billboards and crowded eateries lies a dark world that few know about. 450 miles away from Camp Pendleton, in a hidden alley, a warehouse filled with danger is waiting. It's here that Vincent Dragon Leung, the leader of the Hong Kong Triad in San Francisco, is overseeing a shipment of illegal weapons. Vincent, 45 years old, stood among the large shipping containers dressed in a black suit and wearing sunglasses, making him look like a powerful player in the heart of the city. The 12-inch dragon tattoo on his left arm served as a symbol of strength and ruthlessness. He wasn't just a leader. He was someone who had endured the pain of loss and that had driven him down a path of crime. Surrounding Vincent were about 10 Triad henchmen, each armed with a Glock 19 and a dagger, their gazes as cold as the neon lights outside. The air in the warehouse was heavy, thick with the smell of sweat, wood, and metal. Vincent stepped up to a shipping crate, lifted the lid, and peered inside, where 50 AK-47s and 1,000 rounds of ammunition lay waiting. He felt a surge of satisfaction at the sight of this arsenal, more than enough to ensure the large-scale attack he had been planning for a long time. He turned around and looked into the eyes of his henchmen, a commanding gaze filled with determination. He began to talk about the upcoming USMC celebration at Fisherman's Wharf, just 3 miles away. In the tense atmosphere, one of the henchmen spoke up, questioning the feasibility of the plan. Vincent couldn't contain his anger. Both his voice and his eyes radiated ruthlessness. He recalled the painful grudge he held against the U.S. military, especially when mentioning the death of his brother, a USMC soldier who was killed in 2018 in an unfair war. In that moment, the pain and hatred within him surged, transforming into the motivation for the actions to come. Vincent didn't just want revenge. He wanted to prove that the Triad was not a force to be underestimated. He looked at his henchmen, seeing the determination in their eyes, and knew they would do anything he commanded. The weapons in their hands were not just tools. They were symbols of power and a burning desire for victory. Outside, life goes on as families in Chinatown prepare for a festive night. Joyful music fills the air from the restaurants, and the laughter of children echoes around. But inside, Vincent, a storm is brewing. He cannot accept that the American military, whom he sees as the enemy, could hold a celebration right in the heart of this city. It's a disgrace, and he won't let it happen without seeking revenge. As night began to fall, Vincent and his army prepared for what was to come. They had meticulously planned every detail, down to the smallest element. He thought about the USMC soldiers, about his brother's death, and a fiery rage ignited within him. He didn't just want to strike. He wanted to instill fear, to make everyone remember his name and that of the Triad. Vincent looked out the window, where the neon lights still shone brightly. He knew tonight would be a night to remember, not just for him, but for the entire Chinatown. The soothing sounds of life outside were gradually replaced by a chilling silence. The brutality and danger of the Triad were about to erupt, and no one could stop it. As the trucks loaded with weapons pulled away from the warehouse, Vincent felt a whirlwind of emotions. He knew that what was about to happen would have serious consequences, not just for the American military, but also for himself and the people he loved. Yet, in the mind of someone who had experienced loss, revenge was the only thing that could bring him any sense of peace. And in the moments that followed, everything would change forever. In just a few hours, the celebration will begin, and Vincent Dragon Leung won't let anyone stand in the way of his plans. Tonight, he will become a demon in a world full of light, and what happens next will be something no one will ever forget. On a gloomy afternoon at Pendleton Camp, the 500-square-foot conference room fell silent, with only the sound of chairs scraping against the wooden floor. Long tables were arranged in a U-shape, with a large tactical map in the center, marked with red dots indicating key areas. A bright 60-inch screen displayed satellite images, revealing narrow roads and dead ends in the city they were about to face. John, a seasoned Marine, sat in one of the front chairs, feeling a bit anxious as he gazed at the map. A tense atmosphere enveloped him as he realized that the lives of many would depend on his decisions and actions in the hours to come. Colonel Robert Kane, 50 years old, with a commanding presence and piercing gaze, stepped into the conference room. He quickly captured everyone's attention by raising his hand slightly, signaling for silence. The heavy breath of tension filled the room. Kane began to announce a serious conspiracy that had been reported by the FBI. The audience in the room couldn't help but feel a weight in their hearts as they listened to his voice resonate, conveying the horrifying details of the Triad's attack plan at Fisherman's Wharf, one of the most famous destinations not just in San Francisco, but in the entire world. "We only have 48 hours, Kane declared, his voice filled with determination. "Our mission is to stop this attack before it's too late." His words crashed over John, Maria, and Tommy, his teammates, like relentless waves. John felt a heavy weight on his shoulders, but he couldn't help but feel a strong surge of motivation. Tommy, always full of energy and excitement, kept nodding as if he was embracing a new adventure. "We can do this, right? We've faced tougher situations than this before," he said, his eyes shining brightly. But John knew that Tommy's enthusiasm could become a double-edged sword if not kept in check. Facing Tommy, Maria was much more cautious. She looked around the room, her gaze filled with worry. "We need a detailed plan. The terrain in Chinatown is really complicated, and if we're not careful, we could get stuck," she said, her tone serious, making the atmosphere even heavier. Kane nodded, agreeing with Maria. He began sketching out a preliminary plan on the whiteboard, highlighting the key points that needed surveillance. "We'll need to coordinate with the FBI to get the most accurate information about Triad activities in that area." His voice was firm, but in his eyes, John caught a glimpse of a worry he had never seen before. This wasn't just a mission. It was a heavy responsibility for the lives of many innocent people. Now, John felt caught in a whirlwind of responsibility and anxiety. He thought about the innocent people living in the heart of the city, the families who, without timely intervention, would find themselves in danger. He listened intently as Kane continued to give instructions, but his mind drifted to memories of past encounters with peril. Each time, he realized that the cost of carelessness was far too high. As the meeting came to an end, everyone quietly left the room, but the tense atmosphere still hung in the air. John, Maria, and Tommy walked out together. They strolled through a vast courtyard where military vehicles were lined up and other soldiers were getting ready for their missions. Weak sunlight filtered through the tree branches, casting long shadows on the ground. John felt a heavy weight in his heart, yet it was also filled with determination. "We need to get started right away," John said, his voice stronger than ever. "We have to have a detailed plan, and we need to work together." Tommy nodded, while Maria looked at him with a trusting gaze. Deep down, John knew they would have to overcome their own fears to protect the innocent people. And no matter how tough this mission was, he couldn't let anxiety take over. Stepping out of Pendleton Camp, they gazed toward the horizon where the city of San Francisco awaited, a monumental challenge lying ahead. Each step they took was filled with fierce determination, a bravery unafraid to confront danger. Because in moments like these, it wasn't just their responsibility, it was also the hope of those waiting for salvation. On the long road to San Francisco, John's small squad left Camp Pendleton on a bright sunny morning. The sunlight gleamed off the Humvees, highlighting their military green, a symbol of strength and determination. Inside the vehicles, the atmosphere was heavy, yet filled with fighting spirit. The team consisted of John, Maria, Tommy, and 5 other soldiers, all ready for the mission ahead. The journey stretched nearly 450 miles, and they would have to spend about 7 hours on the I-5 North Highway. John sat in the driver's seat, his eyes glued to the road ahead. Through the windshield, the California landscape unfolded like a vibrant painting. Lush, green fields, rolling hills, and in the distance, the vast ocean. John couldn't help but think about what awaited them up ahead. But he knew that the most important thing right now was their team spirit. As John focused on driving, Maria sat beside him, double-checking the smoke grenades and C4. She knew that these devices would be the key to the mission's success, and making sure everything was ready was absolutely crucial. A single click could change everything, Maria thought to herself, determined not to let any mistakes happen. Tommy sat in the back seat, staring out the window. His eyes reflected worry, but John sensed that the boy needed a little encouragement. He turned around, smiled, and said, "Tommy, you know, when I first went to the battlefield, I was just as anxious as you are now. But remember, each of us has a reason to fight. Stay calm. Everything will be all right." John's voice was gentle yet powerful, like a small flame igniting Tommy's spirit. The team continued to move, the vehicle rolling through coastal towns. Oceanside appeared with its sprawling beaches, where the sunlight reflected off the water like diamonds. John recalled the camping trips he took with his family here. But now, all that remained were memories. They drove through Los Angeles, where the neon lights and towering buildings created a dazzling scene, yet also held within them countless tales of heartache. Meanwhile, the other soldiers in the unit were also busy checking their gear. They were setting up their M4 carbines, getting ready for any unexpected situations. Each clink of metal was a reminder that they were heading to an unpredictable place. The tension in the vehicle was rising, but along with it came a sense of determination and a fighting spirit. Time passed, and the road signs kept appearing one after another, signaling that San Francisco was drawing near. John felt a flutter in his heart, not just because of the mission, but also for the people there. They were going to protect, to bring peace to those who were less fortunate. He reminded himself that he was fighting not just for himself, but for those around him. As the car continued to speed down the I-5 freeway, the atmosphere inside felt heavier. But then, in the moment of silence, Maria spoke up. "We're going to make this happen. Right, everyone?" Her question was like a spell, breathing new life into the team. Everyone nodded, determination shining in their eyes, and soft laughter began to ripple through the car. With each mile that passed, Their hearts swelled with hope. They were not just soldiers, they were friends, comrades ready to stand by each other. As the towering buildings of San Francisco began to appear on the horizon, John felt a powerful surge of emotion. They had faced countless challenges, but here, at this moment, they were about to embark on a noble mission. As the Humvee rolled into the city, the golden afternoon sun bathed everything in a warm glow, welcoming the soldiers home. They knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but at least they had each other. And within each of them, a strong resolve had taken root. To fight not just for themselves, but for a brighter future for everyone. In the dark of a light rain, with a chilly atmosphere in Chinatown, an old warehouse stood precariously just half a mile from Grant Avenue. The temperature hovered around 55 degrees, and flickering lights reflected off the raindrops clinging to the damp brick walls. It seemed like the whole neighborhood was deep in slumber, but not everyone. A USMC Special Operations team consisting of 8 members stealthily moved through the narrow streets, dressed like locals to avoid detection. John, the team leader, took the lead with a determined gaze, while Maria and Tommy followed closely behind, gripping their weapons tightly. As they approached the warehouse, a wave of excitement washed over everyone. John signaled for everyone to stop. They had been preparing for this exploration for a long time, but at this moment, standing in front of the decaying wooden door, everything felt real. Not wanting to let this opportunity slip away, John pulled out the RQ-11 drone, a modern device that would help them observe from above. Everyone stood in silence as the drone took off, gliding smoothly over the narrow rooftops, reaching into the interior of the warehouse. The screen displays sharp images from the drone's camera. Something unusual comes into view: hundreds of guns and thousands of bullets piled haphazardly. Hundreds of firearms, these deadly weapons, are lying in wait for their owners. A wave of anxiety washes over John. This isn't just an ordinary smuggling operation, this is a much larger conspiracy that they can't yet comprehend. In that moment, a decision is made. John orders the infiltration. As the team began to move in, the atmosphere grew tense. They crept forward step by step, like shadows in the night. But it wasn't long before a sudden noise erupted. A Triad henchman, who was on guard, had spotted their presence. In the blink of an eye, chaos ensued. Gunfire erupted, bullets flying mercilessly. A brief shootout unfolded in the cramped space of the warehouse, where figures darted around like lightning. For 10 minutes, the sound of explosions roared, blending with the heavy breathing of the soldiers. They had to quickly keep their spirits up, because in this situation, just one moment of distraction could lead to death. John led the team, ordering each person to find cover and fight back. Maria, with incredible bravery, shot down an enemy, while Tommy used all his skills to shield his teammates. Each bullet, each gunshot, felt like a heartbeat, pulling them into a whirlwind of emotions. They weren't just fighting for the mission. They were fighting for their very survival. As the gunfire erupted, John felt adrenaline surge through him, igniting a fierce determination to see the mission through. They had gathered enough crucial intel, but everything was far from over. The Triad henchmen weren't going to give up easily, and the urgency intensified with every passing moment. Finally, when the gunfire died down, John signaled for everyone to retreat. They couldn't stay any longer. They couldn't risk their lives. They backed away, step by step, through the shadows of the cramped warehouse. The rain continued to fall, but this time, it felt like a promise for the survivors. They had overcome a tremendous challenge, but what they witnessed would never fade from each person's mind. When the whole team returned, John looked into each person's eyes, feeling their resilience and determination. They had faced death and come back, but the wounds were not just on their bodies, they were also in their souls. Chinatown, with its dark corners and secrets, had witnessed their life and death struggle. In each person's heart, the memories of that dark night would forever be a part of their lives, serving as a reminder of courage and sacrifice. As the city lights began to glow, John knew that the battle wasn't over yet. There was still so much work to do, many plots to thwart, but at least they had made a significant stride forward. And in that moment, along with the falling rain, they returned with hope and determination. On a hazy evening in San Francisco, as the neon lights reflected off the damp streets, a group of 4, John, Maria, Tommy, and Ryan, was making their way into an alley near Stockton Street, just 0.3 miles from the warehouse where they had been staying. The air was thick with tension as they realized that this mission could be a turning point for the entire group. They had prepared for every possible scenario, but no one could have anticipated how brutal the ambush about to unfold would be. As they stepped into the narrow alley, strange echoes began to bounce back from behind them. John, always the calm one, sensed the tension in the air. He turned around, and in an instant, dark figures from the Triad emerged, weapons glinting in the dim light. The sound of gunfire rang out sharply like a mournful melody crafted just for the night. Ryan, the youngest in the group, didn't have time to react. A bullet sliced through the air and struck him square in the chest, causing him to collapse to the ground. Ryan's gaze darkened, and in that moment time seemed to freeze. John felt an indescribable pain, a sorrow of loss that could never be undone. When the gunfire erupted, Maria didn't hesitate. She immediately summoned her courage and quickly grabbed the C4 from her backpack. While Tommy panicked, screaming and unsure of what to do, John refused to let fear take over his mind. He ordered the whole team to retreat through a 200-foot alley where they could find shelter. Maria used the C4 to blow apart a flimsy wall ahead, creating an escape route for the group. The explosion thundered, shattering the silence of the night, and dust billowed up in a cloud. They rushed through the narrow space, but John couldn't shake the image of Ryan, a boy full of ambition, now gone forever. As the group ran for a while, John stopped, a heavy weight pressing down on his shoulders. He blamed himself for not protecting Ryan, for not being fast enough to pull him away from the clutches of death. The guilt felt like a storm, sweeping away all hope within him. Maria, despite having completed her mission, felt her heart shatter from the pain of losing Ryan. She looked at John, seeing his confusion and regret, but she didn't know what to say to comfort him. Tommy was still trembling, his eyes wide with panic, unable to escape the haunting scene that had just unfolded. The dark alley, filled with piled-up trash, has now become an unforgettable memory etched in their minds. The sounds of life outside seem to have faded away, leaving only the heavy breaths of the group and the haunting cries of painful memories that cling to them. They understand that this ambush is not just a battle, but also a hard-earned lesson about friendship and sacrifice. After escaping the alley, the group ran to a safer area. They found a hiding spot where a faint light still flickered. In the dim glow, John looked into Maria's eyes, then at Tommy's. They all understood that this loss had changed everything. No one spoke it aloud, but the pain quietly seeped into their souls. They had lost a friend, a comrade, and nothing could fill that void. As the night gradually faded away and the first rays of sunlight began to peek through the sky, John still sat there in silence. The heavy feeling in his heart was impossible to shake off. Ryan would always live on in their memories, an image that would never fade. Their friendship had been tested, but they also knew that it was that very friendship that would drive them to get through the days ahead. They had endured pain together, and in that pain, they found the strength to keep living, to never forget the values that Ryan had left behind. The city of San Francisco continues with its bustling pace, but within the hearts of those four friends, a new chapter has begun, filled with pain, yet also a determination to keep fighting for what is right. They have experienced loss, but that cannot stop them from rising up and moving forward. The temporary base of the U.S. Marine Corps at Presidio, San Francisco, located about 4 miles from Chinatown, is currently enveloped in a heavy atmosphere of sorrow and loss. In a 300-square-foot room, dim lights illuminate the anxious faces of the troops, who once fought together like family. Today, they gather not only to remember Ryan, but also to confront the pain his death has left behind, haunting each of their minds like a ghost. John, the team leader, looked around the room where everything seemed to have come to a standstill. He recalled the memorable moments with Ryan, the laughter, the endless conversations about dreams and desires. Now, all that was left was silence, like a sad melody. Ryan's photos hung on the walls, each one telling its own story, but now they were just painful memories. John felt the ache in his heart rise like a tidal wave, crashing hard against the shores of his soul. Tommy, the young and rookie soldier, stood quietly in a corner of the room. Doubts flooded his mind. Would he be strong enough to face the challenges ahead, or would he become a burden to the others? The relentless questions swirling in his head left Tommy feeling overwhelmed. He looked into the eyes of his comrades, seeing their resilience, but also their unease. The guilt of not being able to save Ryan weighed heavily on his heart. Maria, the strong and courageous woman, stepped into the middle of the room, her eyes filled with determination. She knew this was not the time to falter. "We have to keep going," Maria said, her voice steady and unwavering. "Ryan sacrificed himself for us. We can't let him down. Remember, we are a team, and we will get through this together." Her words of encouragement were like a breath of fresh air in the gloomy atmosphere. She was the guiding light, the beacon in the storm. But as the team began to regain their spirit, a notification from the FBI made the atmosphere more tense than ever. Vincent, the enemy they were hunting, had changed the location of his attack. The situation grew more urgent, and the gazes of everyone in the room instantly shifted from sorrow to anxiety, like leaves trembling in a strong wind. John felt a cold wave run down his spine, as if the safety they had been seeking had suddenly evaporated. In that moment, everyone sat in silence, feeling the weight of responsibility pressing down on them. The pain of losing Ryan was still fresh, and now they had to face a new threat. John felt the anguish in his heart like a raging wave, sweeping everything away. He knew that it wasn't just him. The whole team was in a state of mental crisis. But what could they do now? What could they do to overcome this pain and keep fighting? The light from the window streamed in, highlighting the tears rolling down Tommy's cheeks. He stood there, his eyes vacant as he stared into the distance, where the waves lapped at the shore as if whispering comfort. Maria couldn't let Tommy fall apart. She moved beside him, placing her hand on his shoulder, sharing her strength and warmth. "We're going to get through this," she said. "Together, as a family." Even though the atmosphere around them grew heavier with each passing second, within each person, they began to find a faint glimmer of hope. Ryan did not die in vain, and they would not let this pain make them weak. They would continue to fight, not just for themselves, but also for those who had sacrificed for them. Time passed, and even though the sadness lingered, in that room, determination and a spirit of unity began to take shape. They wouldn't let Ryan down. Together they would rise, continuing the fight, with hearts full of memories and resilient souls. The distant sea breeze blew in, carrying the breath of those who had passed, a reminder that life goes on, despite all challenges. The small po shop on Jackson Street, nestled in the heart of Chinatown, is a haven for those seeking a taste of home. It's only about 800 square feet, but the cozy atmosphere makes everyone feel right at home. The fragrant aromas of broth, onions, and spices blend together, creating an ambiance that draws people in. John, Maria, and Tommy are seated in a tucked-away corner where the warm, yellow light casts a glow over the old wooden table, creating an intimate setting. Tommy, who always seems excited and optimistic, is chatting with Mr. Tran, a local who has lived here for nearly 60 years. Mr. Tran has a simple appearance with silver-streaked hair and bright eyes, but behind that exterior lies a treasure trove of information about the neighborhood. As they savor each steaming bite of pho, Tommy asks about the strange things around the area. Mr. Tran, with sincerity and caution, reveals the existence of a secret casino run by Vincent, just about 5 miles away, near the Golden Gate Bridge. When John heard that news, he couldn't help but feel a wave of hope swell inside him. Their goal was clearer than ever. They didn't just want to learn about the casino, they wanted to clean up the illegal activities that Vincent was hiding. This mission wasn't just for their own benefit, it was to protect the innocent people in the area. These thoughts filled John with a renewed strength. He began to plan an attack, mapping out the necessary steps to confront Vincent and his crew. As they left the PHO restaurant, the air outside was a bit chilly, but each of their hearts felt warm with hope. They had a lead, and now it was time to take action. For the next 2 hours, the team practiced their tactics in a makeshift space they had found. John had brought along a drone, a device he had assembled himself, and an M40A6 sniper rifle, a weapon he had spent a lot of time getting familiar with. Every step of the training was meticulously planned. John guided Tommy and Maria on how to operate the drone to monitor the situation from a distance, while he personally checked the accuracy of the sniper rifle. Those moments flew by quickly, and the determination in their eyes became increasingly evident. They not only wanted to defeat the enemy, but also aimed to bring peace to those they loved. With every shot, John felt the weight of responsibility, but also the strength of love and loyalty. Maria, though not a sharpshooter, showed remarkable courage as she discussed strategies with John and Tommy. They were not just friends, they had become a family, an alliance against evil. Each time they aimed, they envisioned the faces of those they were fighting for, and that made them even stronger. As the practice session came to an end, the sunset began to descend, and the city's hazy lights started to twinkle. John, Maria, and Tommy paused to gaze at the Golden Gate Bridge, where the secret casino awaited them. They knew that the upcoming battle wouldn't be easy, but the feeling of hope and determination had become an endless drive for them. In that moment, they felt that no matter how tough the road ahead might be, they would never be alone. They would fight for each other, for their dreams, and for a brighter future. They were ready to face the challenges, and nothing could hold them back anymore. In their hearts, the fire of the fight for justice burned stronger than ever, guiding each step they took toward the promising horizon. Beneath the ground, near the Golden Gate Bridge, a secret world awaits. This casino, sprawling over 2,000 square feet and plunging down 30 feet, is a haven for tortured souls, risk-takers, and shattered dreams. The bright red lights reflect off the gambling tables, where the sounds of coins, clinking, and laughter blend with the thrill of the games. But today, that festive atmosphere will soon be replaced by chaos. John, a former Special Forces soldier, along with his teammates Maria, Tommy, and Vincent, had devised a bold raid plan. They were brave souls, warriors in the shadows, and their mission was to wipe out the Triad's operations in the area. In their hands were C4 explosives, ready for the assault. As the countdown began, their hearts raced in their chests. They could hear the noise from the other side of the door, where the Triad goons were caught up in their card games. John signaled for everyone to get ready, and then, in a moment of silence, he pressed the button to detonate. The deafening sound of the explosion erupted, and the steel door flew open, revealing a scene of chaos. The red lights sparkled like stars in the night, but now no one was laughing anymore. 15 Triad henchmen quickly drew their guns, and bullets flew like rain, embedding themselves in the concrete walls around. In this tight space, every second was precious. John charged in, using his hand-to-hand combat skills to take down one of the henchmen, feeling the heat of the battle rising. Maria didn't stand still. She leapt out of her hiding spot, firing accurately at another henchman. Each bullet she fired carried with it hope and a fierce determination to wipe out those standing between them and freedom. Tommy, with nerves of steel, led the charge, shooting and moving, not giving the enemy a chance to retaliate. They had been trained to handle high-pressure situations, but now the adrenaline and sweat were merging into an inseparable flow. In the midst of the chaos, Vincent spotted an escape route. He quickly ran toward a 500-foot tunnel he had scouted earlier. Time was running out, and he decided to leave behind a time bomb. In 5 minutes, everything would blow up, and he hoped they would make it out before it turned into a pile of rubble. Everything happened in a flash. Bullets continued to fly, the sound of gunfire echoing in the cramped space. John and Maria stood side by side, each protecting the other, each with a reason to fight. They weren't just fighting for themselves. They were fighting for the innocent people outside, for dreams yet to be realized. As the third minute ticked away, John decided they could no longer hesitate. He shouted to Maria and Tommy, urging them to fall back and retreat. They had taken down most of the henchmen, but a few were still firing at them. They had no time to waste, and in that moment, John felt as if he was standing on the brink between life and death. The blaring red lights reflected off their tense faces, and for a moment, time seemed to stand still. They looked at each other, realizing that this was not just a fight, but a fight for survival. They burst out of the casino, racing toward the exit with their hearts pounding. Vincent had been waiting, standing by the entrance of the tunnel, watching the light from the door. As the whole group rushed in, he nodded and quickly pressed the button to activate the timer bomb. In that moment, a loud sound erupted, and the casino shook like an earthquake, dust swirling up and debris flying in all directions. They survived, but the price they paid was steep. The images of the raid would forever be etched in their minds. From that moment on, they understood that in the fight against evil, it takes not only courage but also sacrifice and a steadfast belief in the future. They had won, but the battle was far from over. They would continue to fight for those who could not fight and for the dreams yet to be fulfilled. In the suffocating atmosphere of the casino, the flickering lights and the loud sounds of slot machines blended with the laughter and chatter of the patrons. But in the hearts of John, Maria, and Tommy, there were only the pounding rhythms of life and death. After Vincent escaped, everything spiraled into chaos. They knew time was running out, and every passing second was filled with the anxiety of whether they could thwart Vincent's ruthless plan. Maria stood in the middle of the crowd, her favorite outfit now smeared and stained, but her eyes still sparkled with fierce determination. She was not just an explosives expert. She had endured some of the toughest moments in life. 30 seconds, that was the time left to disarm the bomb that Vincent had planted in the casino. The acrid smell of explosives thickened the air, but Maria wouldn't allow herself to back down. She bent down, her hands moving skillfully, step by step, her breath steady. It felt like time had come to a standstill. All that remained was the sound of her heart pounding and the warning beep from the bomb. John stood beside her, his eyes filled with worry yet equally resolute. He knew that Maria was the only one who could do this. He glanced around, not just to assess the situation, but also to search for any sign of Vincent. In his mind, Dark images of death and destruction loomed. But he wouldn't allow himself to be defeated. They had come here to protect the innocent, and John couldn't let Vincent win. Tommy, John's close friend, ran up, his face pale. He had just received news from the search team. They had found the documents that Vincent left behind. A detailed plan showed that he was targeting Fisherman's Wharf, one of the busiest spots in the city, where millions of people pass through every day. This weighed heavily on their hearts. If they didn't stop him in time, countless innocent lives could pay the price for Vincent's reckless game. Maria continued to work, her hands gliding over the wires like an artist playing a delicate melody, each touch infused with precision and determination. She had been in similar situations before, but this time, the stakes were higher than ever. Everything depended on her. She pulled out a pair of pliers, carefully snipping a red wire before moving on to the green one. Her heart raced like the pulse of life around her, but she wouldn't allow herself to get distracted. She could hear John's voice whispering in her ear, encouraging and cheering her on. But the heavy atmosphere still weighed down on her heart. In the last 30 seconds, it felt like the whole world was spinning around. Maria took a deep breath, telling herself that she couldn't fail. She had seen too much death, too much pain. She couldn't let it happen one more time. Her hands trembled slightly, but she was determined to stay steady. Finally, with a decisive cut, the bomb fell silent, as if it understood that its fate was no longer in Vincent's hands. John and Tommy let out a sigh of relief, but before they could celebrate, the sound of a phone ringing shattered the moment. It was an urgent message from the search team. Vincent was on his way to Fisherman's Wharf right now. They didn't have time to rest or celebrate this victory. There was only one path ahead. John, the leader, was ready for the final showdown. He looked at Maria and Tommy, his eyes filled with determination. They had to act immediately. There was no time to hesitate. "We have to get there right now," John said, his voice firm and full of energy. They were no longer ordinary people. They were warriors, determined not to let evil triumph. Inside each of them burned a fierce resolve. They burst out of the casino, leaving behind the remnants of a battle they had won, and stepped into the dark sky, where everything would be decided. They knew that facing Vincent was a fight not just for themselves, but for their loved ones and the city they called home. Now nothing could stop them, and they were ready for the final battle. At the Presidio base, amidst the still and chilly night with temperatures hovering around 50°F, bright lights illuminated the determined faces of the soldiers. John stood in the courtyard, watching his team members and the FBI agents gearing up for the final battle. In the solemn and tense atmosphere, he felt the weight of responsibility heavy on his shoulders. Each person knew that tonight was not just a fight. It was a decisive battle for their future. John, with his deep-set eyes and steady voice, began to share the plan. He had laid out a detailed strategy, dividing it into 3 different groups, each tasked with protecting a specific area of Fisherman's Wharf. The sounds of weapons being checked echoed around them, the clatter of M4 rifles and M67 grenades making the atmosphere more tense than ever. The soldiers, despite their tough exteriors, couldn't hide the excitement bubbling inside. They all understood that this battle was not just a simple clash. It was a fight for honor, survival, and love. Meanwhile, Maria, a key member of the team, is trying to train Tommy, a young soldier who just joined, on how to use a sniper rifle. She knows that mastering this skill could be a game changer in the upcoming battle. The lights shine on Tommy's face, highlighting his eagerness and anxiety. Maria gently guides him step by step, from how to aim to how to adjust for the wind. "Remember, Tommy, staying calm is crucial. When facing the enemy, don't let your emotions take over," Maria advises, her voice warm yet firm. In the dim light, John saw the silhouettes of his team members preparing their weapons, assembling and checking every detail. They were all seasoned fighters, but the anxiety was still evident on their faces. While they waited, everyone huddled together, sharing little stories and happy memories to ease the tension. John smiled softly as he watched Tommy, with his youthful face, trying to bring laughter to the group with his funny tales. That was how they bonded, even in the toughest situations. As the clock struck 1 in the morning, the atmosphere became more tense than ever. John gathered the team, his gaze sweeping over each member, sensing the determination in their eyes. "We've been preparing for this moment for a long time. Remember, it's not just us here. There are families, loved ones waiting for us to come back safe," he said, each word hitting like an arrow straight to the heart of everyone. The group fell silent, listening intently, and their spirits were ignited. In the final moments of preparation, Maria stood beside John, her eyes shining with determination. "We can do this, right?" she asked, not really needing an answer. They had faced so many hardships together, and now they would fight side by side once more. Under the starry sky, the soldiers in the squad felt the power of unity. They were not just soldiers, they were friends who had overcome countless challenges together. As night gradually gives way to the light of dawn, the team prepares to set off for Fisherman's Wharf, the battleground ahead. John leads the way, followed closely by Maria, Tommy, and the FBI forces. They walk with steady strides, hearts filled with determination. The final battle awaits them, but they know one thing for sure. No matter what happens, they will always stand together, fighting for what they believe in, for the people they love. Under the darkened sky, the stars twinkle like witnesses to their resilience. And within each of them burns a flame that will never be extinguished. At Fisherman's Wharf, under the dim lights reflecting on the water, the night air seemed to be infused with the excitement of the 500 participants celebrating the United States Marine Corps, USMC. About 2 miles from the Golden Gate Bridge, this place is not just a famous tourist spot, but also a stage for unexpected events. John, a seasoned veteran, along with Maria, a strong and determined woman, stood near the shore where the sound of the waves lapping gently served as a backdrop for this solemn occasion. Tommy, John's close friend, was checking his weapon, while Vincent, a mysterious figure, lurked in the shadows, observing from a distance. Like a storm that hits out of nowhere, the atmosphere of Fisherman's Wharf was suddenly shattered by gunfire, bullets embedding themselves in the walls, and the sound of grenades echoing everywhere. The Triad's henchmen, numbering up to 20, surged in like shadows, determined to take control of this space. They weren't just there to cause trouble, they were there for revenge, and this threat quickly escalated into an unavoidable confrontation. Maria didn't hesitate. She quickly threw a smoke grenade, creating a thick cloud of smoke that shielded the USMC team. Meanwhile, Tommy, with a vantage point about 300 feet away, aimed at a Triad sniper, and the gunfire rang out like a symphony of life and death. Each shot was not just a bang, but a powerful message sent to the enemy. They were not easily defeated. Vincent, meanwhile, quickly realized that he couldn't just stand still. He ran into a narrow alley where darkness became his companion, and in his mind, fear and determination intertwined. He knew that if he didn't take action, the price would be steep, and his life would be in the hands of his enemy. The scene unfolds like an action movie, but with the genuine emotions of people fighting for what they believe in. The shimmering lights from the seaside restaurants reflect on the water, but no one is paying attention to the beauty of Fisherman's Wharf at this moment. Everything has turned chaotic, and the screams echo in the air, blending with the sound of the crashing waves. John, with his leadership spirit, quickly reorganized the team. They were not just soldiers, but friends who had gone through many battles in life together. "We can't let them win," John shouted, and the determination in his eyes fueled the strength of those around him. They were ready to counterattack, not just for themselves, but also for the soldiers who had sacrificed so much. The confrontation became more intense than ever. Gunfire erupted continuously, mingling with the sound of grenades exploding, and the air was thick with the smell of smoke and gunpowder. The Triad henchmen, though numerous, could not overcome the determination and bravery of the USMC team. Each soldier knew they were fighting not just for themselves, but for the ideals they had upheld their entire lives. Meanwhile, Maria kept moving like a gust of wind, quick and powerful. Every action she took radiated courage and determination, and she became an inspiration to those around her. She was not just a woman, she was a warrior. And in this moment, she proved that strength is not defined by gender, but by the heart's bravery. As the battle raged on, Tommy took aim once more, his target a Triad gunman trying to operate a machine gun. The 300-foot distance now felt like a daunting challenge, but with laser-like focus, Tommy didn't hesitate. With a precise shot, the gunman fell, and a wave of excitement surged through the USMC troops. Finally, amidst the gunfire and chaos, a temporary silence emerged. The soldiers looked at each other, their eyes filled with determination and resolve. They had overcome the initial shock, and now they were ready to take down the enemy. Despite the odds stacked against them, they proved that heart and the spirit of unity could conquer any force. Fisherman's Wharf, where this battle takes place, is not just a tourist spot, but also a witness to the power of courage and friendship. Under the shimmering lights and the sound of crashing waves, the story of John, Maria, Tommy, Vincent, and the USMC soldiers will become a part of history, not just a battle, but a fight for freedom and dignity. The sunlight pierced through the dreary gray clouds, creating a gloomy atmosphere over San Francisco. John, the leader of the pursuit team, felt his heart racing as he, along with Maria and Tommy, dashed through the narrow alleys near Fisherman's Wharf. These alleys, about 200 feet long with their old brick walls and scattered trash cans, served as a constant reminder of the danger lurking nearby. Vincent, the man they were desperately chasing, was no easy target, but the determination in John's eyes showed that he wouldn't stop until he caught him. They burst out of the alley, the cool sea breeze hitting their faces, accompanied by the soothing sound of waves crashing against the harbor. John gripped the steering wheel of the Humvee tightly, roaring forward toward the Triad gang's truck speeding away at 60 mph. A rush of excitement filled him, as if every second could determine the fate of everyone involved. Maria sat in the passenger seat, her hands clutching a pack of C4, ready for her bold plan. Tommy was in the back, his eyes glued to the fleeing truck, primed for a surprise move. As the Humvee sped along, John leaned slightly to take in every detail of the road. They passed parked cars along the curb, towering buildings beside them, as if time had frozen in that moment. A sense of urgency quickly filled the air, and John felt like he was living in an action movie. He was not just a criminal. He was part of a life he couldn't afford to lose. Maria, with unwavering determination, was ready for the big shock. As Vincent's truck turned into a narrow alley, John didn't hesitate, following closely behind. They were so close now, just about 100 feet away from ending this chase. Maria emerged from behind, throwing a C4 package at the truck, and in an instant, a loud explosion erupted. Flames and smoke surged, thickening the air with a sense of dread. The truck was obliterated, but Vincent was nowhere to be found. He had swiftly escaped onto an abandoned ship by the harbor, where the churning sea crashed against the hull, providing a haunting soundtrack to this pursuit. John and his team didn't hesitate. They jumped out of the Humvee and sprinted toward the ship. The rusty steps leading up to the deck creaked under their weight, each footfall echoing like a knock at destiny's door. They knew Vincent was somewhere nearby, possibly hiding in the shadows of the old cargo containers. A rush of adrenaline surged through John as he moved forward, one step at a time. Every second felt like a century, and he could feel each breath growing heavier in his chest. On the ship, the dark and damp atmosphere made everything feel even more terrifying. Strange noises echoed from the shadows, making John's heart race. Maria and Tommy stood beside him, their eyes filled with determination. They hadn't come here to fail. They had come to put an end to Vincent's reign, the one who had caused so much suffering to innocent people. At that moment, John felt like he was in the middle of a battle, not just with Vincent, but also with the fears inside him. He reminded himself that he couldn't let himself fall apart, that he couldn't allow the memories of those he had lost to hold him back. Emotion surged within him. On one side was anger, on the other was determination, and in between was a nameless fear. Finally, they found Vincent, hiding behind a row of large crates. The dim light from the flickering lamps on the ship illuminated his face, and John knew this was the moment of truth. Vincent turned around, his eyes showing fear but also a fierce defiance. The chase had led them to a crossroads, but now there was only one thing left to do. As John moved forward, each step he took seemed to compress all his emotions into an unshakable resolve. They had come here not just to catch him, but to reclaim justice for the victims, for those who had lost their lives. San Francisco, with its alleys, docks, and the scent of the ocean, had become a part of this battle. The chase was not merely an action, it was a journey in search of truth and redemption. At Fisherman's Wharf, a 200-foot abandoned ship sits alone amidst the gentle waves, like a silent witness to the tragic stories that have unfolded. The dim light from the lanterns hanging outside creates an atmosphere thick with mystery and tension. John, a former USMC veteran, stands on the rotting wooden deck, feeling the breath of life slipping away. Facing him is Vincent, an arch nemesis holding an 8-inch dagger, the glint from the blade causing John's mind to momentarily falter. The wind from the sea blew in, stirring the old wooden planks, but nothing could shake John's determination. He had faced many battles, but this fight brought him a different kind of anxiety. It was not just a struggle for survival, it was a battle for honor, family, and the future. Vincent, with eyes as cold as ice, approached. A moment of silence stretched on, filled only with the sound of waves crashing against the hull and the pounding of John's heart. When the battle began, John relied on the hand-to-hand combat skills he had honed in the military. Every punch, every dodge was meticulously calculated. But Vincent was no easy opponent. He was quick and decisive, his dagger glinting like a star in the dark night. John felt every move Vincent made, and in a split second, he lunged forward. A sudden stab, 2 inches deep into John's shoulder. Pain surged through him, but there was no stopping now. He gritted his teeth, tasting blood and the suffocating tension in the air. All that remained was perseverance. John found strength in memories, in the people he loved. He thought of the little house in the suburbs, filled with the laughter of his daughter and the warm smile of his wife. That was his motivation to stand firm. With a powerful punch, John took Vincent down with a blow to the neck. He fell, his eyes bewildered, like a wounded beast. In that moment, silence enveloped them, leaving only the sound of John's heavy breathing and the waves crashing against the boat. As the pain began to spread, John knew he had to act quickly. With the last of his strength, he pulled a distress signal device from his bag. Time didn't allow for hesitation. He activated the signal, the light from the device flashing in the darkness like a beacon, guiding those who were searching. In that moment, he felt like a soldier in his final battle, but not for himself, rather, for the ones he loved. The blinding light from the rescue signal felt like a miracle, bringing with it hope and salvation. John collapsed onto the deck, the coolness of the rotting wood spreading through his body. But in his mind, the image of his family remained ever present. He knew he had triumphed in this battle, not just for himself, but for those he loved. Though the wound on his shoulder might be a painful reminder, it also stood as a symbol of sacrifice and courage. As the distant sound of the rescue train's horn echoed, John felt an unusual sense of peace wash over him. Despite the pain coursing through his body, his heart was filled with a deep sense of fulfillment. He had done what he needed to do. Overwhelmed with emotion, he closed his eyes, allowing the beautiful memories to flood back. The sky outside began to brighten, the first light of a new day bringing with it hope for the future. The ship, with its rotting wooden decks and dim lights, would forever stand as a testament to a heroic battle, an unforgettable sacrifice. UCSF Medical Center sits in the heart of San Francisco, just 3 miles from Fisherman's Wharf, a place where bright lights shine but also hold deep pain. In a clean, quiet medical room, John lies in his hospital bed, his body still weak from the emergency surgery. The neon lights cast a glow on his face, reflecting his worries and haunting memories. It feels as if time has stopped. In this moment, all that exists is the sound of the breathing machine and the faint rhythm of his heartbeat. Maria, John's teammate and closest friend, stood beside the hospital bed. She had once been a brave warrior, but now her eyes shone with determination and resilience. Maria had just received a promotion, but it didn't bring her complete joy knowing that her best friend was facing the dangers of life. She held John's hand tightly, feeling the warmth from his palm, as if she were transferring strength to him to overcome the challenges ahead. Tommy, the young man who once was a shy boy, has now become a confident soldier, standing in a corner of the hospital room. He decided to join the military, not just to protect his homeland, but also to fulfill the dream that John inspired in him. The image of John has become a role model for Tommy, and now he wants to prove that he can be as brave a man as he was. He looks into John's eyes, seeing the light of hope and encouragement. In the quiet space, John's heavy breathing echoed like a somber melody. He looked at Maria and Tommy, his heart overflowing with emotion. Even though he had survived the storm of fate, the price he had to pay was the inability to continue serving in the military. It was a heartbreaking decision, but he understood that his health had to come first. As the sunlight streamed through the window, John began to reflect on the journey of his life. "We fight for those who stand behind us," his voice echoed in his mind, like a voiceover. Memories of fierce battles, blood-soaked moments, and peaceful times spent with his comrades flickered in his thoughts. Those who had once stood by his side, those who had sacrificed everything, had left him with a profound lesson about courage and friendship. Maria, still holding John's hand tightly, felt the helplessness in his heart. She knew that each person on the team carried their own pain, but they had always stood by each other, overcoming every challenge. She decided she wouldn't let John feel alone on this new journey. She would continue to give her all, carrying John's spirit with her in every task she took on as the new leader. Tommy, looking into John's eyes, felt a new strength rising within him. He was not just a soldier. He was a representative of those who had sacrificed, of those who had fought, and of those who were still alive. He promised himself that he would never forget the reason he joined the military. The scenery around them gradually transformed as the bright sunlight of a new day streamed through the window. John, Maria, and Tommy stood together, gazing out at San Francisco Bay, where the waves lapped at the shore like the heartbeat of life. They might not know what the future held, but they were certain that friendship and courage would always guide their way. As they stood there together, their silhouettes blended into the light, a symbol of strength and hope. In that moment, John felt that he was not alone, that the love and support from those around him would always be the driving force for him to keep fighting, not with guns and bullets, but with his heart and a desire to live. Life goes on, and even though the road ahead is filled with challenges, they are ready to walk it together. From this hospital, they will carry with them valuable lessons, beautiful memories, and a strong belief in the philosophy of life. We fight for those who stand behind us. The dawn breaks over the vast sky, its brilliant golden light streaming through the steel beams of the Golden Gate Bridge, creating a breathtaking scene that no one can forget. From Fisherman's Wharf, just about 2 miles away, the sound of waves crashing against the shore blends with the cheerful chirping of birds, painting a vibrant picture of San Francisco. The temperature hovers around 60 degrees, the air fresh and cool, like a peaceful greeting from the city by the bay. John, Maria, and Tommy stood by the bridge, 3 close friends since childhood. They had been through so many ups and downs together, but today, they gathered here not just to admire the beauty of the bridge, but also to honor the soldiers who sacrificed their lives for freedom. John, who always had a sensitive soul, gazed out at the bay, a pensive look etched on his face. Maria, with her sparkling eyes, recalled the stories her father had told her about the Marines who lived by the motto, Semper Fi, always faithful. Tommy, the friend who was always cheerful and funny, was now quiet, sharing in the sorrow with his 2 friends. He began to tell a story about a soldier he had met at a charity event a few years back. This soldier had fought in brutal battlefields, but when he returned, he carried with him the pain of those who never made it home. Semper Fi, Tommy said. It's not just a motto. It's a promise to those who sacrificed. Tommy's words resonated like a haunting melody, touching the hearts of all 3. As the sunlight began to flood the 1.7-mile bridge, John felt the weight of memories wash over him. He thought of his father, a veteran who taught him about patriotism and sacrifice. Every step taken by the soldiers on the path of serving their country carried a sense of worry, but also an overwhelming pride. "They fought for us," Maria whispered, her eyes shining with determination. "We can't forget them." The 3 of them stood silently by the bridge, immersed in the tranquil atmosphere of the morning. A gentle breeze swept through, carrying the scent of the ocean, a reminder that life goes on. Together they reminisced about those who had passed, those who had put their lives on the line to protect freedom for others. A swell of pride surged within them, like the waves lapping at the shore in the dawn's light. As the sunlight began to shine down, the Golden Gate Bridge appeared in all its glory, a symbol of hope and strength. John turned to look at Maria and Tommy. They all understood that this moment was not just a simple trip to see the bridge, but a journey back to the core values of life. "Let's always remember them," John said, his tone solemn yet filled with determination. "They will always live on in our hearts." In that moment, all 3 of them felt a powerful connection to each other and to those who had sacrificed. They raised their hands together, facing the American flag waving boldly in the wind. Emotions ran deep, each of them carrying a profound sense of pride. That flag was not just a symbol of a nation, but also a symbol of those who had given their lives for the ideal of freedom. As the sunlight shone down on the flag, the vibrant colors of red, white, and blue burst forth, serving as an unforgettable reminder of the battles fought in the past. John, Maria, and Tommy stood in silence, their hearts filled with emotion. They understood that no matter how much time passed, the memories of the soldiers would forever live on in their minds. The Golden Gate Bridge, with its majestic beauty and profound significance, became a witness to untold stories, deep sorrows, and new hopes. Looking out at the vast bay, they understood that life goes on, but the values of loyalty and sacrifice will always endure. There, under the dawn's light, they vowed together to never forget those who had sacrificed and to always live with pride and love for their homeland. As the silhouette of the bridge gradually faded in the light, they knew this was not an ending, but a new beginning, where memories and dreams would continue to live on in the hearts of each person. Thank you for joining the Legendary Narratives channel on this emotional journey through San Francisco. We witnessed John's bravery, Maria's resilience, and Tommy's desire to rise above. They fought not just for freedom, but for camaraderie and those who stood behind them. The spirit of Semper Fi serves as a loyal reminder of the value of sacrifice and pride. If you love this story, please give it a thumbs up, share, and subscribe to the Legendary Narratives channel so you won't miss any of the next inspiring journeys. We want to hear your thoughts, so leave a comment about which moment touched you the most. Goodbye, everyone, and I'll see you in the next video. Stay tough, stay proud, and see you soon.